Hello, this is Erick Widman. I'm an immigration lawyer and I'm going live twice a week is the plan here. And we are talking today about how do I accurately calculate the number of days that I've spent in the US so I can ensure I can naturalize. So how do I make sure I spend enough time in the US to meet the physical presence test is another way of saying that. Because if you are applying on your own to naturalize and you are a permanent resident, there is a 5-year statutory period that applies, and you have to be physically present in the US for half of that time. 50% of that time you have to be here. If you are married to a US citizen and you're applying on that basis, you have a different statutory period of 3 years, and it's half of that 3-year period that you must be physically present in the US. You don't want to waste time or money, of course, when you apply for citizenship, and you want to make sure you qualify. So you have to make sure that the accuracy of your physical presence test, the way you're determining that is all okay and it's correctly calculated. And so the key unit of measurement is the day rather than, for example, a week or a month. If you knew you spent 2 months out of the last several years, that's not accurate enough. You need to determine how many days you are actually outside the US. And you do that, and you have to write it down on the N400 form. It has to be written down, the number of days that you've spent outside the US. There's no spot for weeks, no spot for months, for example. So knowing this is where lawyers get to use all of our nitpicking skills, the way you define a day matters. And so a 24-hour period is what matters for determining if you've actually been outside the US a day or not. And so if you haven't spent a full 24 hours outside the US, it doesn't count against you. That's not one of those days that you have to report for the physical presence test. And so every time you're leaving on a trip, that day does not count against you because you've spent some time in the US for that particular 24-hour period. Similarly, coming back in, that does not count against you. So how do you make sure, though, that the number you're writing down in the N400 form is accurate? You don't want to rely upon your memory alone. So you're going to want to pull out your old passport, your prior passports, maybe multiple if you had to renew it. Pull out your passport that shows when you had left the US and the entry date and the exit date, if you have it. Sometimes it's not completely clear, and we recommend that you also always go look up your travel history online. And you do that by going to the official CBP website and type in I-94 CBP travel history online. You should get to the official site. It's i94.cbp.dhs.gov. And you will then be able to pull down your official travel history according to CBP. You'll enter in your name, passport number, birth date in order to get your full travel history listed out there. Then you can print it as a PDF and use it as a key document. You can rely upon that. It's pretty accurate most of the time, but check for discrepancies between your own passport records and your memory. So it's a good thing to compare and contrast because the government does make mistakes. Now, there's a couple other key things to remember, that if you were out of the country for a full month, you'll also want to just have a computer help you with the math. You might be a mathematical genius, but most of us aren't. And it's surprising sometimes to realize that, okay, I was gone from mid-February to mid-March, and your calculations can be way off. That happens to us. So we always double check, and we use a calculator, like a time and date calculator, to crunch the numbers, to confirm the exact days that you were gone, because often it's surprising. And if you don't meet the physical presence test because if you botch the number calculation, that's really frustrating because USCIS will not allow you to get your citizenship. It's a frustrating way to get through all that process, go to the interview, and then the officer gives you the bad news there that, sorry, you haven't been in the US long enough. So double check your calculations. And another final recommendation for this, especially if you're someone who's spent a lot of time outside the US and you're getting close to that 50% mark, you'll probably want to do an online application for your N400. Not necessary, but one of the benefits of applying online is they have a built-in calculator that will not allow you to submit the application if you don't meet the physical presence test. So if you were actually not eligible and you submitted a paper application, that could go through. But if your data is correct and you're entering in the correct number of days you spent outside the US, the computer system has a built-in, essentially, time and date calculator as part of the online N400 application. So that could avoid you some heartache and trouble later on by using that online application. Another perk of the online application is that you get an immediate receipt notice. So we like that at our office, especially the last year where receipt notices were quite delayed. So I hope this was helpful. Make sure you're calculating your dates correctly and get in touch if you have any questions. Take care. Bye-bye.